and fingers crossed the recording works. Hi everyone, how you doing? Thanks for joining us in the Voice Lounge. Yong and Rick with some more Yong and Rick adventures. We're talking, talking about the game. Sorry, I find it hilarious. I'm sure no one else does. We're talking about the Game Jam. It's wrapped up. It was awesome. There's been so many amazing entries. And if you guys are listening in the Voice Lounge and aren't also looking in the Game Jams channel, then hop in the Game Jams channel because that's where we'll put some information. Feel free to ask us questions. You can see that Yong again has put in there the results, so we can check out the results. So Yong, over to you. What's the wrap up? What's the skinny?
Yes, I noticed there are a couple of people here who've asked, like, what is a game jam? And, there's some people who didn't compete or didn't participate, I should say. So I'll just first kind of explain what we did last month. So a game jam is sort of like a hackathon. It's an event where there's a theme announced, and then everyone scrambles together to form teams and then produce an entry, in this case, a game that fits the theme within the allotted time frame. And in our case, the time frame was the entire month of May. There were some announcements made. We had a lot of live sessions just during the event and whatnot. And this was run on itch.io. You can see in the Game Jam channel the link to the results. And so it says at the top there that the jam ran from May 1st to June 1st. Then we had 2 weeks of voting, and there were 4 main categories in which every entry was voted upon. So the categories were gameplay, visuals, audio, and then mood. There's a 5th category called overall that just kind of averages everyone's ranking from the other 4 categories. Um, but what I wanted to do was cover each of the 4 categories here, and then maybe to talk about the overall. Just because some people are better at capturing like one thing, or like some people have an audio background, or some people have maybe more of a artist background, and as you'll see when we get to the overall, some people have a bit of a background in several different areas. So if you want to follow along, check out the link in the Game Jams channel. It's the results page, and I'm going to start with gameplay. Yeah,
Yep.
so the person who won first in the gameplay category here was also the person who won overall. As you can see, it's a pixel puzzle game that uses level design to basically craft a unique player experience. That was made by Raimondi, and well, his Discord username is Raimondi. I don't know if he'll actually be joining us, but he said it was his first time making a game on his own outside of the courses, but he does have a background in backend for like at least 3 years. I talked to him briefly, like just in a private chat, but he said something about having a background in development before entering game dev, and then the more impressive thing is that this is his first time doing the artwork on his own for an entry. So I presume maybe he did the course and used the provided assets there. But for this jam, his personal goal, besides building a game, was to also do the art on his own and learn that aspect. And as you can see, he did a pretty good job. Most people liked his entry, and obviously he took first in gameplay and the mood and overall. Got second in visuals and fourth in audio, so he made a pretty comprehensive entry there. So the next one is by a guy named Daichi Fob. He also did something similar. It's like a 2D puzzle game. This one's more of a platformer, whereas the one made by Raimondi was more of just I guess just a pure puzzle movement game. Yeah, so this one it utilized the time stop mechanic, so you can stop things that are falling down. You also get a gun later that shoots this giant bullet that you can jump on and ride, and you can also stop the bullet as well to traverse the level. Um, but again, similar vein here. Is you know you see a trend here in the the top three at least is it's a 2D entry, utilizes level design and uh, I wouldn't say pixel art graphics, but some sort of simplistic art style that allows them to iterate and produce very quickly.
I really like I'm having a look at the moment on my screen of the game Stop, that you're talking about, the one that was second in gameplay, second overall, I believe, I think. Um, it's the level design is really cool, very interesting, very fun, lots of variety, and I like that there is a really good time mechanic in there. It stops everything, pushing the space bar just stops the entire game, which is really fun, really interesting. Or it doesn't stop the entire game, sorry. It stops everything moving within the scene. So it really fit the theme very well. The one thing that anyone listening here who's been participating in game jams and wanting to up their game jam game, as in get better at it, I think one of the things that I really like that these first two games we've talked about did is they had a web build. So you can easily just click on it and start playing it. There's nothing to download, nothing to unzip. I'm always very apprehensive. Even if I've done a scan on something that I've downloaded, I'm still apprehensive about playing it. You know, who knows, just in case. There might be something wacky going on in there. But these were very, very easy to jump in and play, which is often something that helps get more eyeballs on a game.
Yeah, and I will say that I haven't played the third one, the gameplay category here, Chasing Time, or the fourth one actually. Uh, but they do follow a similar vein in, you know, like a simplistic art style, 2D, uh, something that probably is well scoped for the 30 days that was given. I think one of the challenges for many teams and many people who participated is that they uh, didn't have as much time as they realized. A lot of the momentum kind of slows down after the first week, and so a lot of these teams, you know, things came up in real life or family obligations, or maybe just motivation dropped, and so um, the smaller the scope, even though there were 30 days given, it's very clear that the developers that had something um, in mind that they could do pretty quickly, uh, iterate on, and just be able to keep within a certain, I guess, set of limitations. You know, especially the first two entries. If you look at them mechanically, there aren't that many mechanics. There's one mechanic in the winning entry, and basically all you can do in that game is move up, down, left, right. That's the only mechanic. The second place entry, something very similar here. You can jump. Well, the movement's a little bit different, but basically movement and then stopping time are your only mechanics. And I haven't played the third one or the fourth one, but I would imagine that mechanically they're also quite limited, and they utilize the level design similar to the first two entries just to really showcase the gameplay.
There's another one interesting game that I suspect already had a little bit of work done on it before the game jam, but I'd love to hear if the person who created it's listening is Forward Thinking, where you've kind of got a blob on the screen that changes your visuals. It seemed a little bit less about time, a little bit more about the visuals of everything is a dark color, and then when you get this blob, it highlights. You move your mouse around it highlights certain things, and there's an alternate world underneath, and that allows you to finish platformers, because in the normal world you can't actually see where to progress, but then you hold down your special blob vision. I don't know what the name of it, I'm calling it blob vision, and then that allows you to jump on other platforms that you can only jump on while you've got blob vision. So it's a little bit less about time. It does feel like a game that has had a little bit of work done to it pre-game jam, but I really like the very pixely art style, and once again, really cool level design, lots of different levels, lots of structure to it, and really interesting mood. There's an atmosphere to it. So I think it was ranked a little bit lower in terms of gameplay and overall. But for me personally, it certainly could have been ranked higher than seventh. I think it was a very solid game by Human in Theory and FuzzyZilla. So I quite like that forward thinking. I think that was a pretty innovative, pretty interesting game.
Yeah, it's one of the entries that I missed, but apparently a lot of other people didn't, because it did get 20 ratings, which is a lot higher than the average. I think if I scroll up, the average number of ratings per game was 13.3, and the median was 10. So a lot of these entries, there's definitely a visibility aspect, and it's one of the challenging things about uh, game jams and the voting phase is that this is especially true in Ludum Dare, which is the largest game jam in the world. There are a lot of great entries that just don't get many ratings or don't get played because of various things, the algorithm for like sorting that just put them either near the bottom or just in some way that makes it difficult for them to be seen. And so one of the things about a lot of these events, hackathons in general, is that there's a little bit of a marketing or kind of like a like, hey, play my game if you haven't seen it or haven't tried it, that goes on, and you can definitely see this is true for the first two entries. The winning entry had 71 ratings, which is I mean that's a lot, followed by 54, and then after that it just starts to drop significantly after that.
What's really cool is game jams allow you to practice the full cycle of being a game developer, of being an indie game studio, if you will. So if you look at the game that was highest ranked, there's some things that it does really well. One thing it does really well is there's an animated GIF or GIF on as the thumbnail for the game, so you can see instantly, oh, that's what this game is about, and it's a really cool moment that's been picked for the game. So that's the sort of thing that you can learn from that. And when you're out there marketing your game, trying to sell it and make money from it, it's the same thing. You need that initial 5-second visual that has people look at it and say, oh, that's really cool. There's not a lot of other games that did that. There's a couple. I'm just scrolling through the list here. I can see some of that kind of animated picture, but really not many of the games did that. And it's the sort of thing that when you're so busy focusing on making a good game, you often don't have time, or you forget about doing those little things. But when you're out there making your games that you want to sell as an indie studio, pay attention to which game jam games do well, and just do a little bit of an audit yourself on why they did well. What was it about the visuals you found interesting? What was it about the gameplay? What was it about the way that they sold themselves? When you click into the page to have a look at, should I play this game or not? Was it a web build? Was it a downloadable? Was it were there videos? Were there images? And these are all the things that take a little bit of time, but it's a really important skill to practice if you're looking to move being beyond a hobbyist and making a couple of dollars from your game as well.
Yeah, I would definitely say that being able to visually convey what your game is about is really powerful. Just because some of these screenshots, you look at it and it can be difficult to see what's going on or like to make sense of it. Whereas an animated GIF that captures an exciting moment in gameplay, that just sells itself. And even like the sixth ranked entry in gameplay, like Orbit Crusher, that's a pretty cool GIF too. Just
Yep.
the swirls going around. Um, Whereas some of the other ones, you kind of have to either read or you click on it. Sometimes the visual, the non-animated visual is compelling enough, but it's difficult to beat an animated GIF,
Yeah,
just in
it.
terms of.
I find as well it also reduces a little bit of the requirement for you to go and make a specific image. If you're just using a GIF, if you can use that in multiple places as the thumbnail, because for me, I making title pages or title images, it takes time and it's a bit of a hassle. So if you can just grab some screenshot or sorry, some video footage of your game and turn it into a 5-second GIF, then that's a great thing to do. GIF. I'm all confused now, man. We've talked about how to pronounce this so many times. I just don't know. GIF or GIF? What's the? Can you guys who are listening to this at the moment, you just let me know GIF or GIF? Which way? Everyone's just going to write GIF. That's not going to help a lot, is it? Yeah. G as in good or J as in joke. Good. GIF. GIF. I don't even know anymore. Anyway, back to the game jam. Thanks for everyone who's um, humoring me and putting Jeff. Thanks, thanks you guys. Jeff.
That's pretty good.
Yong, just if you don't mind me doing a slight interjection, do we have anyone in our channel at the moment that contributed that submitted a game jam entry? Sorry, just choking. And just so we know who's joining us, if you can let us know the name of your game. So as we're going through, looking at the different games, we can say, oh, this person's with us at the moment. We can talk about it a bit more. Cool. So I'll keep an eye out for that. And Yong, if you want to continue on with your analysis.
Yeah. So I did ask Raimondi to write an article or something whenever he has time to kind of go over the process that he took in making his entry. But one of the things I liked about the second place entry Stop is that if you click on it, I believe he has a link to he has a link to his YouTube, and if you actually look at his YouTube, there is a video of a devlog, and in it, it's only about 5 minutes, but it seems like it's scripted. So he's obviously done some YouTube or video work before, but he kind of talks about how well, what's impressive about this entry is that he was actually building something else for this game jam, and about halfway through the jam, he decided that he wasn't really feeling his entry, and so he decided to stop, pun intended, and read like some time travel short stories, search on the internet for inspiration, do some research, and then he eventually came up with the idea for his current entry, and then proceeded to build that in the second half of the jam. And one of the other cool things about his devlog is that he mentions that he posted on Twitter about his game, and random people on the internet they tried his prototype, the last 2 weeks that he essentially had building it, gave him feedback, and even some people even gave him code. So one thing you'll notice about Stop whenever you play it is that the player controller is actually quite polished. There's a lot of animation, there's some particles going on. A lot of that is I wouldn't say it's taken from someone else's source code, but he did have other developers chime in and say, hey, you can improve this, or like, I've got a better platform character controller, and then according to Daichi Fob, whenever I briefly talked to him, he didn't actually use the polished character controller someone else sent him, but he looked at it and it gave him a lot of ideas and thoughts on how to improve his existing character controller. So it's pretty cool, just how collaborative Daichi Fob's entry was, and the whole journey of how he got to it, starting with another game and then eventually leading to the one that he submitted.
Yeah, I'm just having a little bit of a play with that, with Stop on my screen as well. I don't know if you guys listening are playing the games as we go, but yeah, it's a really neat little game. I quite like it. This is definitely the sort of game I could see being released commercially and having good success. It's got a nice visual appeal to it. Just little details make a big difference. That when you're working on your game jam game, you're often so preoccupied with the big features. You're like, I just need to get this big mechanic, this big feature, this big thing working, that you forget the fact that the little details is what has it really shine. So the character is sitting there just with a little idle animation on it, just, zinging up and down a little bit. The target has a little bit of idle animation on it as well. Little things like that make such a huge difference to the experience of a game. And I'm a big fan of find one or two features that are compelling, and then just put all of your time into polishing those and making those really stand out, rather than trying to add a third and a fourth and a fifth feature, because we don't have enough time to do that. The project is necessarily small and quick, so find one thing that stands out and make that one thing really good, one or two things.
Yeah, and I think this kind of goes back to the whole player experience thing that you talk about in the courses, is because when you do look at these entries, even the top 5, really, they're not mechanically heavy, but it's the player experience, it's the culmination of, again, like the visuals, audio, the mood, all these things that are what make them great. If you were to take, say the winning entry, and then just strip out like the audio, or um, strip out the level design in a way that just I don't know, it's just like some sort of prototype, then it's almost like the game suddenly stops being what it is. It's almost like it lost its soul, and it's almost kind of a weird thing to mention the soul of the game, but it really is something that people talk about on, like, especially on Reddit. You'll see people say like, oh, the game just didn't seem like had any soul, and it's like, well, what does that mean? Because soul is not really like a like a thing. Like it doesn't really, how do you quantify what you mean when you say the game doesn't have soul? But I think what they're really trying to say is that it's the culmination of all these elements that make the game feel like it's bringing you a unique experience, like it's something to really take in and immerse yourself in.
Yeah, a game needs to make you feel a certain way. It's not just a matter of saying, I think my players will be interested when I say, here's a goal, go do the goal, you got it. That's part of it. That's part of making a good game. But you want someone to feel a certain way, that you want them to feel relaxed or rushed or clever. Like if you look at Like Them, the number one voted game, what would the experience be there? For me, it's a puzzle game, so it's really all about when I solve the puzzle, I feel quite smart. There's a more experience building to that in terms of there's a crispness to it. It's fast, it's fluid, it's a little bit not so much on the edge of the seat, but you have to time things perfectly, or else you accidentally run into the spikes. You have to get through laser beams. So there's a lot of delicate controls to it, but I think there's a real feeling, the experience of mastery, of solving it, which I think is great in a puzzle game. So it does that really well. And if you look at the second game, Stop, I think that does the same thing as well. I played that for a while and I'm like, how on earth do I do this? This is really tough. What's going on? And when it introduces a new aspect of the game, for example, shooting a bullet, and then you have to stop time so you can jump on the bullet, or I guess it's a rocket, that for me, it took me a while to figure that out. But when I did, I'm like, aha, look how clever I am. So it gave me that experience of feeling clever. And that's, I think, the difference between a game that's just a whole bunch of kind of tech demo mechanics thrown together versus a game that does have that experience that's weaved into it as well.
Yeah, no, those are great points, and I kind of wish at this point that I'd played the third and fourth entries. It's a little tough to predict how they're gonna end up, and just have a live session afterward. I unfortunately was not able to play every single entry in the jam.
Yep.
Otherwise, I might have actually been able to talk about them. But I would imagine if they scored highly in gameplay, that there was something about the gameplay that, like you mentioned, made the player feel something, whether it was, a feeling of mastery or cleverness, or just some sort of awesomeness that made them really enjoy it, even if the graphics may not have been particularly fleshed out, or might have been really simplistic. It's in the gameplay category. It's a lot of it is, you know, how did it feel to play this game, and a lot of that, does
Yep.
go in with the mood and the audio and the visuals. But it good gameplay design itself can really take the experience quite far.
Yeah, I'm just having a look now at the list of highest rank for visuals. I don't know if you wanted to jump to visuals now, but the game Borrowed Time, that was ranked number one for visuals. Again, I wonder whether this was something that was a little bit created beforehand, because it doesn't look like this level of assets could have been created just for this particular game jam. But that's okay. I think for what we're doing, it's all about learning and improving and and building upon that. Although, if the people who created this game are listening at the moment, they might say, no, this was all done in 1 month. In which case, great work. It's a lot more detailed. It's a top-down style. Well, it's kind of three-quarter top-down isometric type thing. What would you call that? Not a dungeon crawler, like a what would Hotline Miami? What sort of game is that? I don't know the genre of that. Anyway, if anyone listening at the moment can let us know what they think the genre name of the game we're looking at the moment, Borrowed Time, or the Hotline Miami style game, what genre would that be? Just write in the chat if you so desire. But the graphics in that are really quite tight. It looks like there's been a lot of time and effort and love put into it, a lot of detail. So it's above and beyond what one would normally expect for a game jam because it looks very detailed. So again, like I'm saying, it doesn't feel like that was created from scratch just in 1 month. But who knows? It might have been. My apologies if I'm coming to a false conclusion there.
Yeah, and I I actually like that this entry is in the top 10 of the visuals. I mean, it did win in the visuals because one of the things about the jam, especially for people who don't have artistic skills or maybe they're more of a programmer, is can you utilize free assets and bring them together to create a cohesive looking entry? And I think that's what Borrow Time does well. I'm making the assumption that they didn't create all these assets uh, during the jam timeframe. Um, One thing that I've done in the past, and some people do in game jams, is uh, bring bring in a bunch of assets and then use a consistent shader throughout. So here it looks
Yeah.
kind of cartoony. Looks like it's some sort of, I want to say, cell shading, just based on the outlines.
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at the images there, the plant definitely has a cell shading look to it.
Yeah.
And it's made in Unreal, so if they've gone and pushed the limits of what Unreal's capable of, then yeah, there's a lot you can do.
But again, my guess would be that they probably got these from like free asset packs online, and then might have done some shader work,
Mm.
or maybe just use a free shader and just uh, made it look cohesive that way.
Yeah, and similar, we've already talked a bunch about the like them game, the overall highest ranked. But if you look at Covenant, the game that's third in visuals, it's got a really moody style. Just straight away, it's that. Would you call that cyberpunk? It's got a very um, Blade Runner kind of, but neon kind of feel to it in a way. So straight away, it looks really cool. It jumps out. It's unusual. It's different, and that's so important when you're making any sort of game, whether it's a game jam game or a commercial indie game, to have it that it doesn't look like all the other games. That it immediately has some sort of presence to it, some sort of thing you can look at it and say, "Oh, I recognize that is going to have this sort of tone and mood and gameplay and feel to it," and that seems interesting. It's piqued my interest.
Yeah, so this one is interesting because I believe it was created for it was created for uh, the one game a month jam, I think,
Hmm.
uh, retro, but also he submitted it to our game jam since our jam was also 1 month. So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, I don't know how much it actually fits the theme here. Granted, the theme is also very generic and could have been taken in many ways, but uh, it does look like, based on the credits, that he did everything. Oh no, there's a whole team here. So it looks like
mm,
one guy did programming, art, game design, and some sound effects. Um, Actually, no, it is just one guy, but he used free sound effects on the internet. He's listing them in the credits. So
right. Yep.
it's Unity, Visual Studio, Photoshop, Sprite, and Reaper to create this entry.
I'm just having a look, Young. I've just jumped forward to the game Our Beautiful Grave. I love the comments. There's not a lot of information on the itch entry page, but made in 20 days by one person. It certainly could be done better, but I'm too tired now to continue working on it. I love the authenticity of that. It's just like, okay, I've given my best shot. I'm tired. I need to rest now. That's from someone who's put blood, sweat, and tears into their game. That's really cool. I love it.
Yeah, it has a very hand-drawn kind of aesthetic. Uh, I'm not actually sure. I mean, I didn't play it, but based on this one screenshot, it definitely looks like um, definitely looks like it or looked like it took quite some time to put together just visually.
Yep. I'm just playing Escape Time now. I've jumped to the next on the visuals, which is very pixely, quite like it. Again, if this was created from scratch by the entrant, then it's a lot of pretty good work. Um, I tried playing this the other day actually and didn't get very far. I think that's more a reflection of the fact that I'm useless at the game than anything else. But a very interesting speed up the world kind of mechanic, where you drop down a little portal and then you do runs quickly through it, or at least that's at the start of the game. So it's cool in terms of the fitting with the theme and the mechanic. The one thing I wanted to point out, this game I think was one of the ones that made me feel this way. Oh, I just died. Made me feel this way. There are a couple that made me feel a certain way. That there's a certain minimum amount of feedback that you need to give to the player in terms of what to do. And sometimes we do those things at the last minute. So you don't really need to have a full-on tutorial level or some sort of massive onboarding sequence. But I found some of the games, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what button to push. It wasn't intuitive, even though there were instructions written down below or they were somewhere on the page. And also, if I got stuck, I didn't know how to get to like a pause menu. Some games didn't have pause menus. It wasn't clear where to click. I'm looking at this one now that it's not exactly clear how to get to the next level because it's in the same font as the well done, you beat the level. So there's just a few little things like that if you've been through your first game jam, or maybe you've been through one or two, or you haven't been through any yet, is just to allow time for that system of making sure that it's understandable and playable. And for the love of all things good in the world, please have a way of exiting your game that doesn't require you to control alt delete to get out of it, to have some sort of pause menu that allows you to quit the game. I think that's an absolute minimum, or else people get very frustrated when they play your game. They're like, how do I exit this? You haven't given me a way to stop the game. So just some of those hygiene factors are super important for any sort of game, I think.
Yeah, so Escape Time is one of the entries I played, and I briefly talked to the guy who made it as well. So this is another entry where it kind of showcases pulling free assets from the internet and then putting them together so that it looks like it's one cohesive product. One
Yeah.
thing I did like about Escape Time is that it's essentially a one mechanic game in the same way that Like Them is. And that it utilizes level design to really showcase the ways this one mechanic can be used in many different scenarios. Now, I agree with you on that. Even starting the game Escape Time, you probably die several times before you even know what's going on, and so it's definitely one of those. I want to say one of the common mistakes we make as developers in game jams is as we play our game and iterate on it, we get better at the game, and we kind of lose sight of what a brand new beginner would feel. And so,
Yeah.
and so some of the entries in the jam, you would play them, and then you would die immediately, or something would happen, and you're just like, "What just happened? I have no idea what's going on. I need to like restart this game over."
And that also really affects it is really relevant for tuning as well. I was going to say, if you've been working on your game for all weekend or all week or all month or all year, often you've played the one thing 1,000 times, trying to fix the bug, find the issues, tweak it, tune it, look at it. And by the time you get to the point where you're doing the final pass on it, you've jumped over the jump 1,000 times, and the jump slowly got bigger and bigger and bigger so that you can, challenge yourself as you're playing the game. But unfortunately, you put that big, difficult jump right at the start of the game rather than putting it at the end of the game, which is where the player might have progressed and got better at it as well. So, again, this is why game jams are so great if you're serious about making games, is it's a very safe way to go through all of these different elements and say, oh, I didn't even think about the fact that players would not know how to click the thing to get to the thing, because for me it makes sense so much. So you get to see all these things in a very safe environment.
So I think that covers the top 5 of the visuals. The audio one actually surprised me the most, just because I the only one in the top 5 I played for the audio was Like Them.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I did play Alternate Time as well. But the top 3 I actually never got around.
I played the Hourglass Tale. I'm pretty sure. Let me just click on that to make sure it's the one I remember. Yeah, I played that, and it's cool if the developers are listening. I'm giving them a bit of feedback, and maybe they will hear this, maybe they won't. Is that I found the gameplay so crazy difficult in the first 10 seconds that I wasn't compelled to keep trying. And it wasn't difficult conceptually, it was that they had a chasm jump. So a jump where if you didn't make it, you'd fall to your death and have to start again. They had that as like the third jump of the game in a way where the game is it's a 3D platformer with a little bit of intricacies with the controls and quite a narrow platform you have to jump and land onto. And so I was doing that a couple of times and thought to myself, if it's going to be more of this, where it's a lot of fail and a lot of very fiddly, see if you can make the jump exactly the right way, and then a little bit of a sluggish respawn, then I'm not sure if I want to continue playing. So that might be another great example of the fact that they put what could have been level 3, which would have been a really fun challenge, but they put that as level 1. I also found that they had I really liked that they did an intro sequence, and they've got some cool graphics in there, a little bit of camera work and stuff. But then that didn't seem to match up with what I then did. I was walking around the streets as a real dude, looking kind of suave and a trendy kind of dude. And then I found a random hourglass on the ground, and I click on it, and then all of a sudden I'm in a medieval temple kind of place. So there was a little bit of a disconnect. So I think that's a great game to study if you're interested in understanding about these things, that I found as a player that I hit too much of a brick wall, and I didn't know why I was trying to make this jump. I didn't know why I needed to be invested in the jump.
Yeah, those are all good points. And there might have been a little bit of scoring bias, I should say here, just because the audio, there are only 11 ratings for the audio, and that put it, I guess they're all pretty high audio scores. So it's possible that if there was a disconnect between what's going on, that there might just been just the algorithm or the way the scoring works. Orbit Crusher is one that I think definitely it looks, based on what I've read. Again, I didn't play the game, but 25 ratings, I would say that's more accurate, and it's also kind of like a rhythm game, and so just kind of by definition of the genre.
Yeah.
You should have good audio.
And I really like well done to these guys for creating a gameplay video on YouTube and then putting that on their page. So once again, for folks like us who have probably played 20 of the games, I can watch the video and say, oh, I know what's going on with this game. I don't need to actually play the game because, folks like us in this community who are game developers who have been playing games their whole life, you can watch a game and get nearly the same experience as actually playing it yourself. So we can look at it and say, do we like that? What do we think about it? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it interesting? So video, excellent, love it. Just wanted to make that point 1,000 times yet again. And listening to this, if anyone's watching at the moment or listening at the moment, and you're on the page and checking out this game, Orbit Crusher, you can hear it's got nice music, and each time the star, the moving
Comet?
thing, the comet, thank you. Each time the comet bumps into the planet, it plays a certain tune, plays a certain tone. So there's, as you're saying, rhythm-based games naturally are going to have a good advantage when it comes to audio and sound effects, hopefully.
Yeah. One one entry I want to talk about here is Alternate Time, which got fifth. I think we've talked about the like them, and then we've also covered Covenant a little bit. That one, again, as you mentioned, might have had some work done before the jam, uh, possibly. Alternate Time actually, so whenever I first loaded up Alternate Time, I think the developer himself did the narration in the game. I'm not
Mm,
entirely sure, but there is someone narrating in the game, and it's definitely not some free clip off the internet because it's very specific to the game. And as you're going through, uh, the narrator's basically talking to you and uh, communicating with you, and there's this sort of it's almost like a story going on, like a subplot or something, which I thought
yeah.
was really cool. So that was one entry that really stood out to me in terms of audio.
Yeah, and I like the approach with the art. Is this an Unreal game? Let me just see.
It is Unreal.
Unreal, yeah. You can tell the graphics look Unreal, well, yeah, look from Unreal. But I like the way that it's not, the developer hasn't said, I'm going to try to make this game rely on fancy graphics. It's the texture that's on the walls and on the grounds could be just prototyping texture, like a grid that you use when you're prototyping out your level. But then, a shiny door and some nice lights and stuff. Just using what Unreal is capable of right out of the box without having to do too much work to the art style. And my guess is saying I'm going to do what is needed with the art, but I'm not going to spend all my time on the art. I'm going to do something, play to the strengths of Unreal, do something pretty simple, and then put the time and love into the level design and the gameplay. So I think it's wise. Play to your strengths, I guess, is what I'm saying when it comes to working on a smaller, quicker game. Don't get accidentally stuck having to work for 4 days on user interface graphics if that's not what you want to do or if that's not what you're good at.
Yeah, I will say that in terms of what he's done, I think this is the perfect example of taking primitives. Because if you look at the assets in the game, uh, it, they basically are primitives. It's just like he took the default cube, um, might have, well, the texture I think is taken from. Oh yeah, he got the texture online. He links to it
There's some
in his
Kenny
game
Kenny
page.
textures that he's used.
Yeah, but almost every asset in there was probably just some modification of the primitives that come with Unreal,
Mm.
and then just put together. So it's again, it's really not like you said about the graphics or the not even like the textures really, but rather the ability to put them together into a single compelling experience.
Yep, yep, cool. And then just jumping to the last category, if that's okay, we've got mood. What did you make of the rankings in terms of mood, or is there anything that stood out for you from a mood point of view?
So mood is it's hard to quantify what exactly mood means. For I think mood meant something different to every single person, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's true for most players. But for me, it was how immersive did it feel? Did I feel like I was playing a game where um, I I really felt like I was in the level, or like just did the experience feel like I was there? And I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to say like there physically, but like was I enthralled by uh, this combination of like the visuals, the audio, and the gameplay? Did it come together in a way that made me feel like I was experiencing something?
Yep. Yeah, and you know what? I really respect when people take some risks when they're going through working on their game. I'm having a look at the Split Second game, just the trailer of that. It was, let's see, we're in Mood. It was 19th for Mood, and I think you wouldn't call the graphics award winning, but I would say that they are interesting and different. And the fact that the developer took a risk on them, they're very kind of Tron, Neo, heavy outline. Um, uh, yeah, neon, I guess, is a good word for it. But they're different. This is not the sort of thing that I'm looking at in all the other games. It's not the sort of thing that I've seen in a game I was playing on Steam last week. It's unusual, and it's someone taking a chance, and that's what game jams are all about, and that's what indie game development is all about. You've got to take a chance. You've got to do something fresh, different, interesting, unusual, weird, quirky, amazing, whatever it is that you go for. It just can't be good. It's got to be different to just good, if you know what I mean. So I like this game. I like that it's taken a risk with that. Now you can tell that there's not a lot of creativity just yet put into the arenas, to the levels, to the areas. It's kind of just big straight walls around the outside. So I can see why people rating the game might not have got there and said, "Oh yeah, this is really super slick," but I love that it was different. And so as I scroll through the visuals and the mood in terms of the games that were ranked the highest, all of them have pushed beyond, I think, the just what standard games typically do. There's a lot of pixel art in there that's done really well. There's a lot of nice, well, I was going to say nice, wrong word, but a lot of attempts to do something that is dark or different or vibrant or colorful or neon or unusual. So good work to the entrance. Well done, the entrance, for pushing it when it comes to that different style.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for mood, one game that really stood out to me is Time Weaver,
Hmm.
kind of like a narrative game that takes place in a lot of different situations. If you just click on the game page, you can kind of like the screenshots. There's like the
Oh
changing
yeah.
world, the intro, you're falling, that sort of experience of something different, uh, but something that makes you, I don't know, feel like you're having some sort of emotional connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's different. Like I'm looking at one of the screenshots here. There's a very flat shading style with a heavy fog on the world. Looks very desaturated, but not desaturated in a depressing way, but desaturated in a little bit of a artistic way. So again, it's different, and I think that's powerful. That adds. I think that's part of the reason that it gets higher rating for mood is because it's if you desaturate your game immediately, there's a certain mood you're saying about your game.
Exactly.
Have you ever noticed when you open up a game or look at a game or look at a video or someone says, "Hey, I'm working on something," if they're making a game in Unity and it has the default Unity skybox, the immediate mood that it's creating is bright, sunny day, not much going on, but it also creates the mood of generic default, the thing that you've seen a million times. And it strips everything, I think, that more experienced, someone who's looked at a lot of games, it just immediately strips from them any of the other mood or atmosphere you're trying to create for the game. So I often I often bang on about the fact that one of the first things you should do when you're working on a prototype is change the skybox, whether it's Unity or Unreal or something else. Don't use the default. Change it to something else, even if you're just making the whole thing black or making the whole thing green. So it's different, and immediately people don't have a preconceived feeling about what it's all about.
Yeah, a lot of mood comes in with the lighting and the color scheme that's chosen. And I know that you guys have a course actually dedicated to the some shaders and lighting. But it would be cool to see, um, I don't know, maybe just a I guess a course suggestion idea is
Hmm.
something about creating different moods in games, or maybe something that uh, helps capture these different sort of emotional experiences, or how to create them. I think
Mm.
that's maybe just something to throw in there.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, my formal game development background is as a game designer, game producer, and I'm always fascinated about design. You know, how to create that experience for the player, how to craft an objective, how to give them feedback, how to have them feel clever, how to give them decisions. I love that stuff. I find that when we try to create that sort of stuff as a standalone course, there's a really narrow group of people that are ready for that level of distinction. And often it's a little bit like if you're teaching someone to ride a bike, that when you start talking about, hey, I really want to learn how to do jumps better, then a lot of people inherently are interested in that. But they're like, can you just show me how to brake better first and pedal better and stand up better and to go around corners better, and then I'll be ready for jumps. There's some crazy kids out there who immediately are saying, I haven't ridden a bike yet, but I want to do the jumps. Show me the jumps. And design's often a similar way. So I'm often grappling for how can we weave design into the conversation when someone is still at the point of saying, I just need to learn functions and variables and return types and all these things. I'm still stuck on that. So can you teach me that? And then I'll be ready for design. But, point taken about more deeper intermediate to advanced level design stuff, because that's where you go from just being able to ride your bike around the neighborhood to be able to hit the sweet jumps and have all the people in your neighborhood say, damn, that Yong is amazing on a bike.
Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there. But
Yeah, no, consider it caught, my friend. Caught and acknowledged and heard. Anyone else? Is anyone still listening? I haven't seen many comments of late, but anyone interested in any design tutorials, any design courses, any design, how to create mood, how to link the art style to the gameplay style, to the tuning, how to come up with better characters, stories, or anyone interested in that stuff? Or have you guys all fallen asleep as Yong and I are talking about what we're interested in sorry. I'll buy whatever you make. Well, there's a challenge. Okay. Rick's home cooking course. N8, pronounced Nate, one would assume. Nate's like, yeah, sign me up, cooking course, love it.
yeah,
Savaka, yep. Yes.
if you don't mind, since we do have, I would say about 10 minutes left. For
Yep.
those of you here that did submit an entry, if you want to talk about your experience in the jam, what you went through, I think I saw some comments earlier about lessons learned or someone. Let me find it. Forever AFK, you said way too ambitious for a 30-day game jam project. Again, not to call you out here, but if you wanted to talk about what you meant by way too ambitious, or kind of what happened in your case, it'd be cool to hear the experiences, sort of like the roller coaster ride that you guys have gone through, because you did submit your entry. So
Hey, Rick, I have a question when you have a moment. This is Jenny.
Hey, Jenny, good to hear from you. How's it going? So, Yong, were you
Good.
asking if those folks are on the call? Were you asking if they're here? Do you know that they're there? Can we take Jenny's question?
yeah, we can take Jenny's question.
Awesome.
I've been playing the Half-Life Alex, and now I'm getting into Sam's VR course. I was wondering if he's going to be updating that or if you're going to get more into it. And also, Blender now will interface with Steam VR and OpenXR. Will you guys be getting more into that too?
Oh, good questions. Good questions. VR. Oh, goodness me. You know what? Ben is a big VR fan. He's got VR. His son just every time I've been and visited their place, his son's got the VR thing, just wandering around the living room, bumping into things and having a great time. Sam's spent a lot of time in VR, obviously, with his course. So we've got some real interest in VR on the team. We keep coming up against the fact that our community doesn't have such a proliferation of VR gear. It's a very niche, very specific thing in terms of the people who are like yourself saying, "I want more VR." So I'll give you a little bit of a non-answer first, if that's okay, which is we would love to do tons more with VR, but when there's not many people who are kicking down the door for VR, it's very difficult for us to spend a lot of time working on it. So, yeah, the answer is yes. We're going to pay attention to it. Yes, we're going to dive into it when the opportunity's there. And I think if we're going to do more VR, it would probably be as a section of courses as opposed to an entire standalone course. So we can say that question you've got about Blender. If we can find the right resources to figure it out, we might do some lectures on it or a smaller aspect of it. Or if we can have another mechanism to deliver on VR, another place where people are saying, bring it to us over here. So unfortunately, I don't have a yet. We're definitely doing those things. I've got more of a it's a maybe, and we'll hopefully get to it as an answer to that. Is that okay as an answer?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, right now I'm still getting into the Blender part in VR. I've only touched upon like the cube in it, but that seems like it'd be a way to go to try to do more 3D stuff. And then, my God, that Alex game is just wonderful. I've been
Mm,
playing it ever since I've gotten my index, and it seems like yes, it is expensive to get started, but my God, that game is great. And it would be nice to try to learn what exactly did they do? How
mm.
did they get it like that? I mean, I was screaming like a little girl on one part
Uh-huh.
because it
Yeah.
was that real.
Yeah, cool. Well, I thanks for that. And if we have enough people kind of making screaming like little girls, as you say, about we want more VR, then we'll make it happen. For now, we've got some other things we need to work on, but VR is always in the back of our mind. So
All right, thanks for that.
thank you.
Yeah, so kind of going back to what's the being posted in chat here.
Yep.
Forever AFK posting about his experience. So you were an experienced game developer, but wanted to create a team with inexperienced game developers, just kind of show them the ropes. Yeah, and I'm not surprised, kind of what happened there. A lot of times when you have people new to jams, they tend to overscope, and it's easy to see the 30 days as, oh, I actually have 30 days to work on it, but kind of like how Sam mentioned in our kickoff session, you really want to plan almost like you have a third of the time.
Mm,
Uh, so like 10 days, like if you only had 10 days to work on the game, and this is because of a number of reasons, whether it's creative differences or um, debugging or things that you thought would be really easy but end up taking a lot longer, or the game that you had in your head once you actually built it, especially in the case of Stop and Daichi Fob. Um, if you spend well, he spent half the jam building a different game, and then
mm,
decided that he wasn't really feeling it, and then switched to the entry that would get second. And so there are all these things that you just can't foresee. And again, there are a lot of things that seem like they're going to be great just up front during the discussion phase or just during the planning part, and then once you actually get to a certain amount of progress, you realize, okay, this isn't something I'm actually passionate about, or this isn't as cool as I thought it would be, or maybe the team isn't really vibing with this idea,
yep.
and so there's definitely a lot of things that you can't expect that you don't really have the full time frame of the jam,
The
or
cool
even
thing the cool thing that Forever AFK talking about there in terms of having some inexperienced folks working with them, I think that's so cool because you learn the art that's a really difficult art, which is how do we do one clever thing as opposed to how do we do four comprehensive things. And for people who are newer to game development, the temptation is often to say, you can do this, and then that, and then that, and then that. And when all those fit together, it's going to be amazing. And those things absolutely would be amazing. But that's a triple A philosophy where you do have the time and the resources to add one, two, three, four, and five. Well, you may do, so long as your publisher is not being too risk averse. Whereas in a game jam, it's like, no, what's our one thing? And I was using a bike analogy before. Okay, we're going to have a game where you pedal a bike. Yeah, pedal a bike and you do jumps and then you upgrade your gear and then you get a better bike. Like, no. Those things are and. We don't have time for that. We've just got one thing. Pedaling the bike, is that the thing? Nah. Jumping the bike, is that the thing? Yeah, maybe that is. Doing skids on the bike, is that the thing? Yeah, maybe that is. And you have to just have one thing. And I think that's a fun thing to learn because it takes ages to get the skill to just go for one thing.
Yeah, I think I remember reading, or it might have been a video, but the original Mario, they spent a ridiculous amount of time. I think it was like 3 months just trying to get the jumping mechanics down. And that might sound excessive, but it, the original Super Mario was a very mechanically limited game, but it was taking simple mechanics and pushing them really far using the level design and then just the overall experience of how does it feel to make this character jump. They spent again a ridiculous amount of time just on the jumping part. So it's one of those things in game development, as you said, you start off, you learn all this programming stuff and you learn how to implement features, but then there's this whole other hurdle about how do I actually make the game feel good to play, because it's not just about, okay, I can create an FPS game.
Mm.
It's about how do I create a good FPS game, or like a good shooting experience, just even moving and shooting. That can take a lot longer to iterate and perfect and tune than people might realize starting out.
Yeah, totally. So I just wanted to do a little bit of a shout out to everyone who entered the Game Jam. 226 official entries I see here, which is really huge for a community that was kind of born around participating in tutorial videos, training courses, means that people aren't necessarily experts in this area. We're all learning. We're all learning and getting better and improving. So 226 is huge. And I'm sure there are a whole bunch more people. Oh, sorry, 227, I see. There are a whole bunch more people who I think worked on it, didn't necessarily submit because that wasn't what they were up to. They just wanted a reason to work on the game, and it wasn't about submitting. So there's a bunch more people. So I think it's a really big effort by the community. There's been so much sharing and caring and support and involvement and teaming up. Which is so lovely to see. That's the reason that we all love hanging out in this community, because people are so good to each other and help each other and encourage each other. And obviously, and absolutely a big thanks to you, Yong, for coordinating and putting this together, and all the time and effort and love you've put into the community, helping them realize their dreams of making a game jam game. So thank you to you, and thank you to the community, and thank you to everyone who participated. And just from our side, we're going to have, I think it'll be Ben and Sam, maybe myself, but we're going to be playing the games at some point this week and just recording some videos and talking about the game. So getting a little bit more visual. This has been more of a chat today about it, but getting a little bit more visual with the games and talking about it. So we'll be participating a little bit more in that as time goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess one question people had, that maybe it's something that kind of end on, is people were wondering how often we're going to host these jams, or when the next one's going to be. And just to address that question, right now I don't know. I don't want to have the jams too frequently, as I think these sorts of things, you can go on itch.io and just join jams if you really want to do a bunch of jams, but the community building aspect, the learning, and just taking the experience and moving forward with it to improve yourself as a developer, that is really what this is about. And not just cranking out as many games as you can, or anything else. It's really just about challenging yourself. And from my end, there are some things I do want to improve for the next time. We had a midway session in this jam that maybe could have been marketed a little bit better. I also learned that I probably should not try to develop an entry for a jam I'm hosting. That eats up a lot of time, and so
Did you submit an entry?
I did, but
Can we call
uh,
attention to it? Are you like, don't mention it, Rick? What was the name of your entry?
well, it was just a top-down shooter where time only moves where time only moves when you do. So it's kind of like Super Hot, but if it was top-down in 2D. Uh, but it was like my personal challenge to write it in Python without a game engine.
Oh, wow.
And so it, yeah.
What was the what was the name of the game?
uh, it's called Momentous Proto.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have a look at that one. I'll check that one out.
But yeah, just for the future, I'm thinking I will probably host the next one next year. I think
Yep.
uh, that's a good enough time frame. At some point, we might do bi-yearly or something. It's definitely something that's always going to originate with the community, and obviously we had a great turnout with this one. Thank you to everyone who participated, and it sounds like the vast majority of people had a lot of things that they learned and took away from it. So I definitely like what has happened here. I like the
Yeah.
posts in the community. There's some great what did you learn this jam kind of posts and stuff like that. Definitely check out that thread. It's got a lot of good stuff in it.
So I'm gonna stick around for another 5 or 10 minutes if anyone has any non-game jam related questions about our courses or about what's going on or life in general. So another 5 or 10 minutes. If you want to put your questions in the same channel, the Game Jams channel, just put a QSTN in front of it so I know it's a question. I'll stop my recording now. Thanks, Yong, for joining me today, and thanks everyone for hanging out.